So I built two beds to start with, and I built them out of pressure-treated lumber. And in my last video where I talked about raised beds being a waste of time, I explained why I chose to use pressure-treated lumber and build them the way I did, and line them the way that I did, or chose not to line them. But these beds were very heavy, so I built them in the driveway, and then I moved them over to the location with my sons. And once they're full, they're pretty much impossible to move. Once I got the beds in place, I ran down to the local garden shop and picked up some dirt. I was lucky they actually had topsoil that was already mixed with mulch, so I didn't have to buy separate types of dirt and mix it all myself. I just bought it the way it was, and I brought it back. I bought a half a yard at a time. They will deliver it, but I saved some money by picking it up myself, and I brought the dirt home and filled my beds one at a time. I had to get a half a yard each time because the weight was a lot in my truck, and as you can see, I have an older truck, so I didn't want too much weight in the bed at one time. So I filled it up, and it took me probably about 12 minutes to unload the truck into this one bed.
What is your problem? My goodness.
As you can hear, the chickens got a little excited over there. I don't know exactly what was going on, but I think the dogs were chasing them again. The puppies are pretty good with the chickens, but the bigger dogs, they just want to eat them. So sometimes they jump up against the chicken pen, and the chickens get a little excited. Otherwise, the dogs are having a great time in the yard. So I cleaned off my truck because that was it for today. And then I was going to go on another day and grab the second load of dirt to fill the second bed. So this is what they looked like when they were done. They're basically set up to be modular, so that if I decide to add a couple more next year, they will just butt up end to end with these, and then you can actually eventually bring them around the front and the back and make a section where you can walk into the center, almost like a closed-in greenhouse. So I filled them up to what I thought was a good height based on the dirt that I had bought for each box. And I lined the bottom of the box with 3 or 4 inches of leaves from the year before. And I thought eventually they'll mulch in and that would be good. But what I didn't take into consideration was the fact that the dirt would settle. So as the season went on, the dirt settled quite a bit, and I could have used that extra dirt. I thought it would have been nicer. So one of the things I'm going to do for next year is I'm going to fill them just about to the top, so when the dirt settles, I'll still have a good, 12 inches of dirt. So I just planted some of the basics this year. I planted some regular tomatoes, some cherry tomatoes, some spinach, some lettuce, some green beans, and some zucchini. One thing that was interesting is that this giant sunflower just came up out of nowhere. I didn't plant it, don't know where it came from, but it added a nice touch to the bed, and it was a pleasant surprise. The lettuce came up great the first time, but what I didn't do is I didn't stagger it in 2-week intervals, which I learned later that you could do. You could stagger your lettuce and plant a little bit every 2 weeks so you continuously have a crop throughout the summer. I planted it all at once, and then all of a sudden I was overwhelmed with lettuce, and I could only eat so much of it. So what happens with this type of lettuce, if you don't pick it right away and eat it, is it does something called bolting, and it just turns to seed and it gets bitter. So the rest of the lettuce wasn't that good. I did try to replant some new lettuce at the end of the summer, and for some reason it just didn't take, which is another reason I got to look at my soil and see exactly what's going on. So as I said, I had mixed results this year. The tomatoes came up fine, but the spinach didn't do anything. I barely got anything out of the zucchini, and the green beans started growing fine, but then they just stopped right in the middle and they died. I did have a problem with some beetles on the green beans, and I got rid of those pretty quick with some bug killer that was supposed to be safe with the plants, but after those beetles did their damage, the plants never came back. So I'm going to do some research for next year. I think next year I'll do this again. At this point, I'm not sure if I'm going to build new beds or not to add to the beds. But what I'm definitely going to do that I didn't do this year is test the soil, make sure I've got everything looking good. I'm going to try to get a little better at watering because I wasn't incredibly good about watering regularly this year. And just try to pay more attention to the conditions of the beds with the plants that I plant. So I took this shortcut, and I decided I wasn't going to buy the metal cages that you put around the tomato plants. I was just going to use stakes with some string. But as you can see, because the soil compacted so much and just settled, I didn't have enough depth for the stakes to stand up straight. So the plants got so big that they kind of pulled them over. And I guess next year, what a good idea. Once I fill up with soil, that'll help. But I'm also going to spend the money and buy the cages next year because I had a friend who used the cages and they worked out fantastic. They hold the plants intact, keep them from tipping over, and I think it's a good investment. They'll last for many years. And the final thing that I'll talk about today is you can see the tree coverage that I have. I do not get a lot of direct sunlight. The trees block the sun, which comes over right there where you see in the morning, and the sun moves from right to left during the day. So the most sun I get on these plants is right there in the morning before noontime. And as the trees move, as you'll see, the trees move all the way over to the right. All day long, the sun is filtered through those trees. So that is an issue. What I did do is I did cut down some of those trees. And I actually just put out a long video on the whole process of cutting down those trees, which was pretty interesting because I chose to do it myself rather than hire somebody. And it was quite an interesting project. So that's out if you want to see it. And I'm actually going to put a newer version of this raised bed video out showing you the changes I've made the following year, because this information I'm giving you now is actually from last year. So it's right now it's October 2024, and I've got another year worth of information, more things that I learned. So I'll explain that to you in the next video. Until then, see you soon.